We're recording. So this is Mary Oliver's poem, Mindful. Every day I see or I hear something that more or less kills me with delight, that leaves me like a needle in the haystack of light. It is what I was born for, to look, to listen, to lose myself inside this soft world, to instruct myself over and over in joy and acclamation. Nor am I talking about the exceptional, the fearful, the dreadful, the very extravagant, but of the ordinary, the common, the very drab, the daily presentations. Oh, good scholar, I say to myself, how can you help but grow wise with such teachings as these? The untrimmable light of the world, the ocean's shine, the prayers that are made out of grass. So with that quiet, slow beginning, I would love to move us into a short semi-meditation, a kind of a meditation. And I'm going to read a bit from this book, Earth Prayers. Some of you may be familiar with it. It is ancient. Well, I mean, 30 years old, not that ancient. But when I was very young, I went to a retreat of sorts, an environmental retreat that was facilitated by a number of folks, including Elizabeth Roberts, who is one of the authors on this book. And she told a story about how she was very, very sick and had to go away from her home, chose to go away from her home for a year and rest. She had some chronic fatigue disorder. And she was told she needed to rest, and she knew if she stayed at home, she would just work. So she went to some cottage, I believe in England, in a small obscure village. She didn't tell us where. And she basically hid out for a year, connected with the land, and wrote and or collected many of the poems that are in here. Mostly, I think she collected them more than wrote them. And so in this book this morning, it's called Earth Prayers from Around the World, 365 prayers, poems, and invocations for honoring the earth. And though my copy has marks and dog-eared pages and stickums all over it, I guess though it feels like it's failing in terms of its structure and its binding, it has served me well over the years. So I hope that this little bit will serve you well. It's an introduction written by John Seed and Joanna Macy. Joanna Macy, I don't know if she calls herself a spiritual ecologist, but her work is featured in many of the writings and compilations of things about spiritual ecology. And so she and John Seed wrote this little introduction. So I just invite you to, if you're comfortable, close your eyes, avert your gaze from the screen, and just see if you can relax into these words. Maybe take a deep breath in and a deep, long exhalation. What are you? What am I? Intersecting cycles of water, earth, air, and fire. That's what I am. That's what you are. Water, blood, lymph, mucus, sweat, tears, inner oceans tugged by the moon, tides within and tides without. Streaming fluids floating our cells, washing and nourishing through endless riverways of gut and vein and capillary. Moisture pouring in and through and out of you, of me, in the vast poem of the hydrological cycle. You are that. I am that. Earth, matter made from rock and soil. It too is pulled by the moon as the magma circulates through the planet heart and roots suck molecules into biology. Earth pours through us, replacing each cell in the body every 7 years. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, we ingest, incorporate, and excrete the earth, are made from the earth. You are that. I am that. Air, the gaseous realm, the atmosphere, the planet's membrane, the inhale and the exhale. Breathing out carbon dioxide to the trees and breathing in their fresh exudations. Oxygen kissing each cell awake, atoms dancing in orderly metabolism, interpenetrating. That dance of the air cycle, breathing the universe in and out again, is what you are, is what I am. Fire. Fire from our sun that fuels all life, drawing up plants and raising the waters to the sky to fall again, replenishing. The inner furnace of your metabolism burns with the fire that first sent matter energy spinning through space and time. And the same fire as the lightning that flashed into the primordial soup, catalyzing the birth of organic life. You were there. I was there. For each cell of our bodies is descended in an unbroken chain from that event. I invite you to breathe in deeply and slowly. Exhale in the same rhythmic, relaxing way. And when you are ready, slowly, gently, easily return to this space with your fellow humans, and some of them with our fellow landscape beings behind them. I am so glad you're here because today this beauty thing is really up for me. It's been up for me for a long time, like my whole life, in deeper and deeper cycles, but also this last year of difficulty, which we have talked about and referenced a few times over the last couple of days. And I think beauty can heal. I think the details of the natural world can heal us. If nothing else, they might provide a balm or a break from the moments that we're in that might feel difficult. And so I hope today I will show you some images in a few minutes. I will encourage you to do some creative manipulation yourself with objects or pens and colors that you might have available to you in your spot. But to remember that we have this vast and unflinching treasure trove of the natural world available to us at every moment, no matter where you live, however urban, however polluted, however loud, there is always the ground, there is always the sky. So before we do that, I would love to give you a minute, and when I say minute, I mean like 3 minutes, to just do a brief free write journaling activity. The bulk of what we're going to do today is a little more creative and object manipulation, assuming that you all have things that you can use. Good morning, Andreas. Jump right in and join us. I would love for you to take a few minutes and just write about the impact or the effect or your relationship to beauty and your spiritual life, however you define that, your faith tradition, your deepest self, inspiration. Just spend a few minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, and journal about that. Beauty and your faith, beauty, and your spiritual life. And I will call you back with a chime in a minute. And I will also light some incense to help us hold this space. Welcome back from your reverie, your writing. I want to say a few things about, to preface a slideshow I'm going to show you, and I will explain some of the things that are on the slideshow. Um, but I want to say a few things about beauty and faith. I feel the beauty not only has the potency to heal and inspire and to quiet the outer noise, but I believe it has the power to sacralize. That is, to bring us into closer connection with the divine. We see this in faith traditions forever all over the world, with incense and candles and flowers and um, plant parts that are both in outdoor settings when religious services are happening, but that are also indoors. There are many, many, many ways. I won't remember all of the ways. You know them too. We've seen how nature objects can be used for spiritual purposes to help us connect more deeply. So I am going to introduce to you today a few, or maybe you're already familiar with some of these things, but I'm introduce to you today some things that I call by names like nature mandalas, nature calendars, um, what's another one? Nature altars. And I'll try to remember to explain as I go through the PowerPoint slides when I use these items, what I use them for. Um, and then I'll give you an opportunity to manipulate objects that you might have near you, or if you don't, I have a workaround if you have colored pens. So we'll try and make this work for everybody. The things that I'm about to offer to you as visual images are very, very simple. Some of them use the same objects over and over, but there was an intention each time that I began to do something. So very, very briefly, um, with nature calendars, it's something I use every day. Some people I know, perhaps even on this call, are also making nature calendars every day. I'll explain what that is. But just these are small, simple, super simple ways to get us out of the everyday for a minute using the objects of the everyday, right? Grasses and weeds and flowers and bouquets that I might have that are decaying around my house, and using the items from that to make something. So I'm going to attempt one of these Zoom feats, which is a screen share. And I'm going to ask you if you can see this PowerPoint. Can you all see it? Okay. And I'm just going to leave it in its raw form. Does anyone have any questions or comments at this point before we get going? I can't see you all right now, so just chime in. Okay. So I'm going to move through this a little bit quickly just to give you some images to think about, to consider. So this is a version of a different PowerPoint I did for a different purpose. I altered it for today. And this is nature-inspired creativity. The first thing I want to share with you is what I call lunchtime art. We could also call it snack art. It is very literally when I'm taking a moment away from my desk to shove a little bit of food into my body, trying to honor the fact that I need food and not wanting to take the time to do anything about that. I have spontaneously erupted in object manipulation using things around me. So very, very quick. And you'll see how simple all of these images actually in all of these sections are. Flower petals that happen to be there. Grabbed a green cloth, that might even be a cloth cover of a notebook, I'm not sure. This one was a very carefully peeled, absolutely delicious, by the way, orange. And I realized that I had a perfect cup. So I went outside, I took exactly 90 seconds and grabbed a few flowers and grasses. This was a couple of years ago. This one, same thing. I used kind of a batik cloth, and I had gathered a bunch of seeds for a different purpose. Actually, they're the inside of a flower. And I just haphazardly, as you can tell, arranged them on a cloth. This is the flower part that goes with the prior image. And I pulled that little white thing that you see poking into the center, actually goes down inside. That's the official word, by the way, poke. um, not using ecological terms here, um, to make these very simple items. These are actually lavender wands. I obviously, if you know anything about lavender wand making, didn't make all of those in one lunchtime, but each one might have been a little lunchtime break. This item, the purplish looking ashy purpley thing on the outside is actually a leaf that got very twisted and curled. And so I took a small maple leaf and put it on top and put a few petals in. And then this was just about a month ago, I found an onion skin, perfect little cup. So I followed the orange peel routine, and what's in the center, it was December. So what's in the center is not from the yard. It was actually from a dying birthday bouquet that I was given. So nature calendars, what are they? It's simply an object a day for a month. I start on the first of every month. On the last day of the month, I take a picture of whatever's there. I've been doing this practice for a very, very, very long time. Um, the this is not for me about making art. It's I don't consider any of this art. It's about simply putting things together, touching some part of the natural world with my hands, um, and creating something. And I get tired of these paper calendars with their boxes, or the electronic calendar, which of course I rely on every day for work. But I really like the notion of round and circular and objects that I might find seasonally in the out of doors. So here is one taken on probably the 7th day of the month. I simply made a round piece of cardboard and put some handmade paper on top and started placing the rocks one by one. Here's another one. This was in I think I remember this being from July because there were lots of things from outside. This was in December a few years ago. This was also a summertime offering. And this was the other day. And sometimes I do have a ritual where I like to take pictures of them kind of weekly if I appreciate what's happening week by week. But this one was on not on a 7th or 14th or 21st. I just took it when I felt like the circle was complete. So what are nature altars to me? It is simply a way of honoring a special moment. This one I made to honor somebody who had passed away. It was the year anniversary. That person happens to be my mother, and she was an artist, and she painted lively, bright, lovely, if I might say so, watercolors. And so when I went out to the forest, this is where I created it. I wanted to just have something that kind of looked like a piece of watercolor paper, and to put these little chunks of bark that I found at the site together in some way. This was an altar at a retreat I led. This was a birthday anniversary of someone who passed away, and these purpley blue things were actually naturally growing right there, as were these tall weeds. So I took a few other items and from another part of the yard and put them with what was already growing. So that's just in the grass. This was a little bit honoring a hailstorm. You can see all the white hail balls, hailstones, and a long piece of bark. And I took a candle from inside outside and lit it. That was New Year's Day a couple of years ago, maybe 2020. And then this was another ritual. This actually was to honor, if you'll see, I don't know if you can see in the center, there are dog prints in the center that are from somebody's dog that I didn't see when I was out on this beach. And I made this altar, and then I converted it and adorned it in a different way and turned it into an altar for somebody else. So what's a nature mandala? Really simple meditative creativity. This is just using another bouquet I was given and went outside, and actually it was starting to rain, and I knew I wanted to use these same nature objects again. So I didn't actually have time to get this organized quite in the way I wanted. I literally in about 5 minutes threw them down and then picked them up before they could get wet in the rain so that I could use them again. This is a little bit of a different process. I started doing these nature mandalas with these images this year, or 2020, right after the shelter in place started. And I was going out every day and trying to feed and nourish and soothe myself in the natural world, but I was also hungry for color and connection. And I had started making these, so I take a lot of nature photos. I took a hole punch of different sizes and punched out these um, uh, circles of those images that I had printed out. And then I arranged them in some way. This is another version of that. They're almost, some of the images are almost camouflaged with the bright colored batik behind. And you'll see here, so this is using some carnations and other items you can see there. These two halves are a rhododendron bud that had fallen off the bush randomly in perfect shape. And I decided I needed to see what was inside it. So I cut it in half and I saw it was this incredible, I don't know how well you can see this, but it was just this incredible, beautiful, segmented beauty waiting to unfurl had it not fallen off the tree. I mean, off the bush. And then this is a Douglas fir pine cone. I have lots of those around. I have one here. I don't know if you can see my picture, if you can only see the screen share, I can show this again. But the Douglas fir pine cones are everywhere around here, and they're really hard to cut in half. But anyway, I did that. I made this piece, and then I made this piece using obviously some of the same items, but using, instead of whole carnations that were drying, I used just petals from the carnations. And then this is another version of that same thing. So I'm going to stop the screen share. And I would invite you to ask questions or make comments before I provide some instruction for you to do a related activity. Are there any questions? Do any of these look familiar to any of you in terms of things you might have done yourselves?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you set an intention before you make each one, or do you just do it? Let it happen? What?
Both. I let it happen, but I do set an intention. And in fact, I have a list of things that I will provide you as instructions. And that was the very first one, is carry an intention. Yes, I do set an intention. And the intention might be as simple as, oh, it's that 2-year anniversary of a death. I'm going to go out and see what's there. I'm going to gather what's there and make something. And sometimes it's really simple. I mean, it can be as simple as a rock cairn, right? It can be as simple as taking a photograph of something that strikes our fancy when we're out. I think most of us these days have cell phones that have cameras in them. And so if you're out someplace and you see that striking, streak of cloud across the sky or something, that too can be a moment to capture the beauty and all kinds of, there are infinite possibilities once we have the photo, right? You saw a couple of examples of that. Thanks for your question, Susan. Anyone else have questions? Or
I have a question.
Hi, Trinka. Yeah.
Hi. I appreciated your the moment for us to pause and consider the relationship between our sense of beauty and our spiritual and the spiritual underpinnings of what beauty is to us. And I wondered if we would have an opportunity to hear, or if you had a comment about how you feel about it, or how others have made that connection between their sense of spirituality and beauty.
Would you like to share yours?
Oh, that's
And I
a,
do.
You don't have to. It's just
no,
it's
I
just
don't,
an
I don't
offering.
mind if I'm wanting to hear others. It's natural that I should share too, but I, I appreciated going to that place. I think that beauty has to do with harmony between things, unexpected
Mm.
sometimes harmony and order, and things that may not seem to relate do relate. Color, for instance, or structure, or somehow the way things are put together feel like independent objects become one with each other in a really lovely way. And I think that that speaks of the one creation of all being, that there is harmony and relationship of all things. And ultimately, I think we experience that as love. And so when we
Mhm.
allow ourselves to engage with something beautiful, it brings us to a place of feeling at one with the whole or something outside of ourselves.
Well, my goodness. Thank you. That is not only very clear and articulate, but it pretty much is everything I would have said. So thank you. That is how I feel. I feel like there's an awe. Before awe, though, I need to be open and receptive to what's there. Because if I'm not paying attention, I'm going to miss it all. I'm going to miss the dragonfly trapped in my neighbor's netting that I ended up hanging out with literally for 2 hours while I knew it was dying after I rescued it. Well, I felt like I rescued it. I untrapped it anyway from the net, but by then it was damaged. It had been trying to free itself. That moment, had I not paid attention, I wouldn't have had. So I think it really starts with a tangible connection. And I echo what you're saying, Trinka. I love how you said that really there is this deeper connection that happens. When I touch these items, I have this basket of items. I've had them here since Monday. I keep forgetting to show you, but I've got, dried seaweed and paper birch bark and lung lichen, all of these items I've happened to see. And like somebody said the other day, I think it was Les who was with us on Monday. I was walking along and I saw this leaf and I picked it up. I'm a picker-upper. I'm like, yeah, I'm a picker-upper. When I'm out there, if it presents itself, I might just pick it up. Also, though, being really mindful, and I'll say something about this, about not harming the natural world, but yes, it does connect us. We are already, this is my belief, we are inherently connected and part of the natural world. We are, because we need water, because we're of the elements, as our meditation taught us today, or re-taught us today. We need to drink water. We need to release toxins and waste. We are so dang nature. If we're not nature, what is, right? But we forget, because we have our lives and we have our technology and we have our homes and we have all of these spaces that we abide in that maybe aren't out in the fresh air. And so that reconnection for me personally takes me right back to the divine. It takes me right to source. It takes me right to the thing that's bigger than me. So it is very, very deeply spiritual for me. But first I have to pay attention. Does that make sense or address what you're asking, Trinka?
Yes, thank you for expounding on that. And if we had time, I'd love to hear others' thoughts too, but I don't want to interfere with your program today. So.
Well, thank you. And I want to hear too. So there are a couple ways we can do this. One is I will leave a few minutes at the end, before the end of the hour, that people can be thinking about if you want to share or not. I do want to give you just a few minutes to try and manipulate some things around you. And I'll go through some kind of structure that you're welcome to use or not. But let me just read through these. And I think what I'll actually do also is find my electronic copy of what I'm looking at and post it in the chat. So if you want to take a photo of the chat, or if you're savvy with copy pasting, you can take these instructions that I'm about to offer and use them later. But what I would like for you to do is to spend a few minutes with some nature objects near you. Is there anyone who doesn't have nature objects near you at this moment? Andreas. And are you still traveling, Andreas? So you're on the road?
Oh yeah, I am, and that's why I'm late today, because I was stuck on the road.
Okay, yeah, I figured. No worries about that. Do you have colored pens, a few different colored pens with you by any chance? Okay,
Nothing
so
of
what
that.
what I would invite you to do is either a free write about how you might, using some of the visual fodder you've just been offered, how you might, what you might be interested in looking at or doing once you are back home in your own space in terms of the natural world and objects and your own sense of the divine or inspiration or spirituality. The other piece is if if you want to do a little free write while other people are manipulating objects, do feel free to do a deeper dive into that notion of what is my connection with the natural world, and how is that, or is that not, connected to my faith tradition? Just because I don't want to leave you hanging. There are infinite possibilities. The other thing is you can just hang out and watch us all move around. And we won't do this for too long. I'll give you only about 10 minutes, which is definitely not long enough. But I'm going to just read through this list a little bit quickly, just to give you a sense of how I go about these various things that you saw in the screens earlier. So the first is to carry an intention. Why are you creating this? Who or what are you honoring? Gather objects near you. Avoid damaging nature. Seek permission from living beings. Take moderately, more like foraging than like clear cutting. Consider the object's significance to you, your faith. Consider their significance to you personally, allowing memory, reverie, and dreams. Let go of others' aesthetics, as well as your own expectations or judgments about creative limits. Move into spontaneity and seek configurations that are pleasing to you. Imagine the simple shape that will be its structure, like a circle, spiral, labyrinth, which actually is not that simple, I found. Trying to mimic that. Right angles, braided, what kind of shape is your creation going to take? And then start at the center or at the edge. Place one item or group of similar items at a time. Practice with deliberate symmetry or deliberate dissymmetry. I guess I might say asymmetry. I guess that might actually be the word. Pause, breathe it in, pause again. Proceed quietly, with ease, caring for each item you place. Permit the design to emerge without forcing it. Keep yourself from fussing too much with it. And if you choose, photograph it when done. So if you have some nature objects, just take a few minutes and see what happens. If you have 4 or 5 items, you can arrange them in some way. You can do it on the floor or a table or your desk, or right on your computer keyboard. But just take a couple of minutes and do that. And in the meantime, I've put a couple of links in the chat, and I will put these instructions in there as well, if I can find them. I can't get it. So for anyone who's listening right now, I can't get them into the chat, but I will email each of you with them. I even tried inserting a document and it's not happening. So, but I will get it to you. Take another minute. I know it's really not enough time. And see if you can feel somewhat complete with what you have so far. happened before I was ready. Sometimes picking them up, they're really loud. So just come back. Thank you for trying that. And I'm sorry. I mean, I could spend 3 minutes doing this practice at the very, very minimum, really fast with a few objects, or I can spend 2 hours. So I recognize that this was just a tiny moment for you to get your hands moving. I would like to open it up. I'm actually going to turn off the recording now. So I have a closing quotation and things.